Alright guys, welcome back to Underground Science, and in this video we're going to be talking about Lesch-Nyhan Syndrome. Alright, so first things first, Lesch-Nyhan Syndrome is X-linked recessive, and it's specifically a mutation it's associated with the HG or HPRT mutation, HPRT1 gene mutation. So if it's X-linked recessive, that means it's more likely to happen in males because males have an XY chromosome. So you only have one X chromosome if you're a male. So if you have the mutation, then you have it. While in females you have two X chromosomes. So even if you have a mutation on one of the X chromosomes, the other X chromosome does not have the mutation. So you'll be a carrier. All right. So that's why males are more likely to have it because they only have one X chromosome. Okay. So if you have the mutation, you have the disease. Okay. So what is Lesch-Nyhan syndrome, right? So Lesch-Nyhan syndrome actually is a deficiency so we know it's a HPRT1 gene mutation. Well, this HPRT1 gene, right, actually codes for the HGPRT enzyme. Okay, so the hypoxanthine guanine phosphorybosyl transferase enzyme, which is this enzyme right here. So if there's a mutation in the HPRT1 gene, that means you're going to have a deficiency in this enzyme right here. A deficiency in HGPRT means, right, you cannot convert guanine into GMP, and you cannot convert hypoxanthine into IMP, right? Remember this from the purine salvage pathway. So if you cannot convert guanine into GMP and hypoxanthine into IMP, then that means you're going to have a buildup of guanine and a buildup of hypoxanthine, right? And we said guanine can deaminate into xanthine, and hypoxanthine can just get converted into xanthine via xanthine oxidase. So that means if HGPRT is not working, that's going to mean we're going to start building up the levels of xanthine, which means we're going to start building up the levels of uric acid, because xanthine can get converted to uric acid via xanthine oxidase also. So that means that if you're deficient in HGPRT, that will lead to a buildup of uric acid. Okay, so let's write these findings down. So what did we say a deficiency in HGPRT will lead to? We said deficiency in HGPRT would mean that we build up the levels of guanine and we build up the levels of hypoxanthine, right? Because we cannot convert guanine and hypoxanthine to GMP and IMP respectively. So then that means guanine is going to start getting converted to xanthine, all the extra guanine that's building up, and all the extra hypoxanthine that's building up will also get converted to xanthine, and then xanthine will ultimately get converted into uric acid. So one of the findings for Lesch-Nyhan syndrome is increased amounts of uric acid, right? So in other words, we're going to see hyperuricemia, okay? Hyperuricemia. So that's one of the findings, hyperuricemia or increased uric acid levels. So let's start these findings because there's specific findings that we need to be familiar with, and one of them is hyperuricemia. And right now we can even progress on this topic further, is that if you have elevated uric acid levels, right, that puts you at a higher chance of getting uric acid crystals depositing into your joints, which we know as gout, right? So also you will see you have an increased chance of getting gout in Lesch-Nyhan syndrome due to the increased uric acid levels. Okay, so far we have hyperuricemia and gout. All right, so let's see what else happens in Lesch-Nyhan syndrome. Something else that we see in Lesch-Nyhan syndrome involves a compensatory response. Okay, so what that means is, right, so what did we say? HGPRT is not working, right? So we cannot convert guanine into GMP, and we cannot convert hypoxanthine into IMP. All right, well, this low levels of GMP and low levels of IMP, remember what we said. We said high levels of GMP, IMP, and AMP can inhibit a certain enzyme called PRPP aminotransferase, right? Or also glutamine phosphoribosyl aminotransferase. Remember that enzyme? So remember, if we go back to that pathway, we have, we're not going to go into like super detail of it because we already did that in a previous video. But remember, we have, let's start with ribose 5-phosphate, right? And remember from here we made PRPP via PRPP synthetase. And then after that, from when we got PRPP, from here we made what? 5-phosphoribosylamine, right? And what enzyme did this? So PRPP to 5-phosphoribosylamine was the enzyme that helped do this reaction is PRPP aminotransferase, right? So we said that PRPP aminotransferase can be inhibited by elevated levels of IMP, GMP, and AMP. Well, it can also be stimulated with low levels of IMP and GMP. So look at this, right? So watch this. So if HGPRT is not working, we are not making GMP and IMP anymore because you can't convert guanine to GMP. You cannot convert hypoxanthine to IMP. So that means you can have low levels of IMP and GMP, right? So low levels of IMP and GMP, let's go and write this down. Low levels of IMP, low levels of GMP can go and stimulate PRPP aminotransferase. Why would that help? Well, then that means you'll make more 5-phosphoribosylamine, which means you'll convert more 5-phosphoribosylamine into IMP. Remember, there's a bunch of steps that occurs between this, but ultimately 5-phosphoribosylamine gets converted to IMP, right? And then you have more IMP. So then with more IMP, you can make more purines. Because remember, IMP is converted into GMP and into AMP, which was the whole goal, right? Because we had low levels of IMP and GMP because HGPRT wasn't working. And so we just now increased the levels of IMP and GMP because we upregulated, or we basically stimulated PRPP aminotransferase, okay, which led to the production of more 5-phosphoribosylamine, which then meant more IMP, right? Because 5-phosphoribosylamine ultimately gets converted to IMP. More IMP means more purines because IMP gets converted into AMP and GMP. However, this is actually making it worse because we cannot convert guanine to GMP or hypoxanthine to IMP. So on top of that, that we just said that causes an increase in guanine, increase in the hypoxanthine, which leads to an increase in uric acid. And now we're stimulating PRPP aminotransferase to ultimately make more IMP, which will ultimately make more GMP and more AMP, right? And we said, like, AMP is right here. Remember, adenine gets converted to AMP via adenine phosphoribosyltransferase. And then AMP gets converted to adenosine gets converted to inosine. And then look where inosine gets ultimately converted to as hypoxanthine. So we're stimulating PRPP aminotransferase to ultimately make more IMP, which again will lead to more uric acid. Then more IMP can get converted to GMP, which can ultimately get converted to guanine, because remember, GMP gets converted to guanosine, and that can get converted to guanine, which would again ultimately make more uric acid. And also, due to the increased activity of PRPP aminotransferase, we make more IMP, which can get converted into inosine and hypoxanthine, ultimately uric acid. And remember, IMP can get converted to AMP. And look what AMP gets converted to ultimately, which is adenosine to inosine to hypoxanthine, ultimately to uric acid. So not only is a defect or deficiency in this enzyme causing a buildup of uric acid, the compensatory response in which you stimulate PRPP aminotransferase, that's also ultimately leading to hyperuricemia. All right, so that's basically the main things about Lesch-Nyhan syndrome. Let's finish off by listing other high yield things relating to Lesch-Nyhan syndrome that we should know. All right, so another thing that we should know that occurs in Lesch-Nyhan syndrome that we can see is, for example, you can have aggression can be present in Lesch-Nyhan syndrome. You can also see self-mutilation in Lesch-Nyhan syndrome. Self-mutilation. And then you can also have sodium urate or uric acid crystals in your urine. So let's go and write that down. You can also have uric acid crystals in your urine. All right, you can also have macrocytosis, where you have larger than normal size red blood cells in Lesch-Nyhan syndrome. That's important to know. Macrocytosis. You can also see intellectual disability, patients with Lesch-Nyhan syndrome. So it's intellectual disability. You can also see dystonia in patients with Lesch-Nyhan syndrome. So let's go and write that down. Dystonia. So like maybe abnormal contractions of your antagonistic muscles, which can lead to like maybe tense muscles. So dystonia. And then another thing that we should note is that because you have high uric acid levels, not only can that deposit into your joints and maybe lead to gout, but high uric acid levels in your blood could also, these uric acid crystals can also go to your kidneys, right? And then this could be leading to kidney stones also. All right, so you can have uric acid kidney stones. All right, but I think we covered most of the important things, almost all the important things in Lesch-Nyhan syndrome that we should know. So that's basically it for Lesch-Nyhan syndrome. If we want, we can also throw in the fact that we hammered down the fact how Lesch-Nyhan syndrome leads to hyperuricemia. So we already covered drugs involved in the purine salvage pathway. So what are drugs we can give to decrease uric acid levels? So let's talk about the treatment real quick. If you want to decrease uric acid levels, right? What you can give is, which we're already familiar with, is allopurinol as one of them, right? Because why? Because allopurinol, so we can give allopurinol, let's write these down first, and febuxostat, or febuxostat, however you pronounce that, febuxostat. So remember, these drugs inhibits xanthine oxidase. If you inhibit xanthine oxidase, you can't form uric acid. So it helps decrease uric acid levels in patients with Lesch-Nyhan syndrome. Alright, so that's basically it for this video. And I hope you guys learned a bunch in this video, and hopefully I see you guys in my future videos. Alright, thanks for watching.